So that seems to have covered everything in our taskbar for our standard reports. Next we're going to look at the new subscription button here, over here on the left. Now, subscription is basically subscribing to this report definition, so it can run a report for us at a specific time and place it in a specific location. So if I had to run a report for my boss every day on creating about web forms that have been created by agents on a daily basis, I would have a subscription set up to automatically deposit that report in the various shares that I would use. So for instance, I'd set a schedule so that every 9 o'clock every morning that report would be run and then placed into my specific file share. That whole process is known as a subscription, and to create a subscription you use this new subscription button here. So if I left click this, it will go into the basic subscription menus. Now first of all, you need to actually select a delivery option, and in our environment the only delivery option you have available is a Windows file share. So you'll have your file shares automatically defined, and you need to make sure that you put the path in here correct to the folders that you need to be using. This is a test one that we're actually using for Venus training, so hopefully it will put our report when scheduled into that actual folder on that specific server. Up here as well you can have the file name specifically for this report when it's actually generated. So I'll just change that so we know what it's actually doing. So we know which report it is when it's actually placed into this file share. Now this add file extension when file is created, this is actually tapped on to the end of this file name when it's actually created, so we know what type of file type we have, whether it be a .pdf, .csv, .tiff, .xml. Okay. Right. Next we're going to look at the actual render format. Now this render format is the export format that we used previously, and we've got exactly the same options as we did before. So in our case we're going to use the Adobe PDF file. One thing to note is you've also got the web page option here, and this is basically so you can have it as a web page, so you can view it in a browser, but the majority of times we'll be using PDFs. So I'll use PDF. So this subscription will export this report, which is the web forms created by agents report, using that name and adding the file extension .pdf because it's in the rendered format of Adobe PDF. You also get the option to put in the username and password of the credentials for that file share if needed. At this moment in time, this file share is actually validated by my login account, so I wouldn't need to put it in. But for the purposes of illustration, I'll just type in my credentials here and the password, and I'm not going to tell you that. So that will use my credentials to put that report into that file share when completed. Now we've got the overwrite options here as well. Now the first option is to overwrite an existing file with a newer version. That means if an old version is in there, it will overwrite this one, so you will not have any redundancy within reporting. The second one is do not overwrite the file if a previous version exists, but just append the actual file name to it. And the third one is increment the file names as newer versions are added. So this second one here will not actually overwrite it if it exists, which means it will not deposit the report in that file location. Okay, it will not deposit the report in our file share. It will just say no, can't do it, error. This one here will actually deposit it into our file share, but will increment the name. So when we run this report tomorrow at 9 o'clock, the first report will come up as test report for training.pdf. If we use this option down here for our overwrite, on Tuesday at 9 o'clock it will appear in our file share as test report for training 1. Alright, so it increments through. Okay. So next we actually have the subscription processing options, which are underneath, and this is where we get to select our schedule. So as you can see here, we have the option to schedule it whenever we want. So pressing the select schedule button will allow us to choose our timings. So I'm going to run this on a day, and I'm going to run it every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Okay. Instead of using those tick boxes, I might as well just tick every weekday, because that's what I'm doing, isn't it? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every weekday. Okay. And then I'm going to have a start time of 9 o'clock. And at the bottom of this schedule I can also select a start and end date for when I want it to actually start and stop. So I can select the beginning. So I will start this from the 14th of April. scrolling down the screen here. And I will stop it on the 30th of May. So I'm going to have a whole month of reports, weekdays at 9 o'clock. Okay, so that's everything selected there. So once I'm happy with my schedule, I'll press OK, which will return me back to my subscription main screen. And then to actually subscribe, in order to make this set in stone, I press OK. Now there's a brief summary listed underneath here, which shows you your schedule in brief, so you can confirm whether or not you've actually selected the right options. I have, and I can confirm that that's OK, so I want this to be added to the subscription. If I press OK now, it will give me an error on a password, so I'll just put my password in correctly and then press OK again. Press OK, sorry about that. And it should allow us to progress forwards. Once again, we get the report is being generated screen because it's regenerating the report because we're coming back into it. And we should return to our web forms created by agents ad hoc report. There we go. Now, that's us actually creating a brand new subscription. And that brings us neatly on to the new tabs that have actually appeared up here. You remember before that the View and Content tab are the same, and we also had the Properties tab, which shows you the permissions for who can run this report. Now within here you've got two extra items. One is the history and one is subscriptions. Okay, so now naturally we'll just cover subscriptions. So if you left click on subscription, it should show you who has actually subscribed to this report. And as you can see, it lists my subscription that we've just created here. So when you've actually got reports running, you can actually go into that report and see who subscribed for what days. So you know that if you are editing or deleting these reports, you know who it's actually going to affect. Excellent. The next tab along is the History tab. Now the History tab shows you if there's any changes been made to the actual definition of the report. So you probably won't spend the rest of your time here because it's not for the history of what's actually happened to the report, it's for the history of what's happened to the definition of the report. So the majority of times this will be empty. But what we also have here is the properties for this report. And this actually outlines everything that is needed for this report. And you can see here that it lists the modified date, modified time, who it was created by, and the actual size of the report if needed. Now also here you'll also have a data sources tab, and this data sources tab shows you where it's actually getting the data from. Okay, now that there is the actual data model itself, and this is we're just doing this for brevity now to link it all in. Remember we said we had a data model that plugs in, and then you use a report definition and then a report to actually run on top of that report definition. Well, this is the report now, and this is the data model that is used, which hooks straight into WMA. Okay, so if I just go back to our view, it should rerun our report again. There we are, and that pretty much covers everything there is to know about standard reporting. To return to our ad hoc reports, you'd left click here in the WMA ad hoc reports section, which will take you back up one level to list all of the reports within the detailed section. If you need to return home, you can once again click the home key. So, during this session, we've covered the basic navigation of Report Manager. We've covered generating a report using our reports that have been built within Report Builder using RDL files. We've covered exporting those reports, and we've covered subscribing to those reports. I'd like to take this time to thank you very much for watching, and I hope this video has been informative for you.